Hey everybody, this is Chris. I'm on my way to Rutland, Vermont to visit a blacksmith named Jesse Savage, who runs Savage Forge. What could be better?
You want your sign?
Hot air for the dragon chair. Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Hey everybody, this is Chris. It's time for another edition of Hot Air from the Dragon Chair interview series. I'm here in Rutland, Vermont with Jesse Savage from Savage Forged. And what a better place to have a Hot Air from the Dragon Chair interview than in a blacksmith shop.
There you go.
So
just don't get burned.
That's right, that's right.
Let me set my hammer down.
That's perfect for a blacksmith.
Yeah, good spot for it.
Well, let's get started. So first of all, Jesse, tell me a bit about what you do here in Rutland, Vermont.
This is the name of my business is Savage Forge. And we do some fabrication, as you can see with the welding behind me. But I do a lot of like small forgings and stuff. I'm kind of known for forging bottle openers. And I do forge a lot of my own tools. I teach at Center for Metal Arts. And I'm trying to get into forging to make a product line of forged axes that I would market kind of just to the Vermont community. So it would be like a Vermont-made product. My buddy Keith Mitchell's got a steam bender, so we're going to attempt to do like the old traditional like steam bent handles out of like Vermont hickory. Maybe we could find some ash. I know a lot of the ash trees are going away, but that's kind of my idea. But just at Savage Forge, we do just a lot of small forgings, hooks, coat racks. We do some craft fairs, that type of thing.
And how do you get the message out? What social medium do you use?
I use primarily Instagram. I'm not on Facebook at all. My Instagram is Jesse Savage Blacksmith, and I have my website's pretty much the same, jessesavageblacksmith.com. I'm on Twitter a little bit, but other than that, that's pretty much it.
And you also have a podcast, right?
Yeah, I have. I do a really cool podcast with my friend Rick Barter from Kentucky. He's a farmer in Kentucky that's a blacksmith also. And what we do, we've been doing it for about a year and a half, is we go around and we interview different blacksmiths around the country, really around the world. We've had some really cool people on and some very good smiths, and like just interviewing smiths about how they got into it and what they like to forge, like the tools they use, and it's a really casual blacksmithing podcast that we do. And sometimes we have 3, 4, and 5 people on at the same time, so it's a lot of fun. Usually we call it the Blacksmith's Pub because we usually all have a beer, and we just try to keep it really relaxed and casual, and just kind of basically the conversation is supposed to be as if you're at a pub and you're just talking about what's the drill press you like to use, or what's your favorite anvil, or how you got started in blacksmithing. So it's pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And what's the name of your podcast?
It's the Blacksmith's Pub podcast.com. You can listen to it on the website, iTunes, or Stitcher. It's probably out there a few different places. We're part of this Burn Network, which Victoria Patty is in charge of, and she's got a podcast, Blacksmither Radio. So she plugs it out everywhere. So I don't do that part of it. I just show up and drink beer and talk. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's great. Okay.
Keith, we were just talking about you.
Hey Keith, come in here. Come in here. Stick your head in. We have a visitor.
Yeah.
Come on in here. Come in.
Come in.
Hello.
Introduce yourself.
You gotta get Mitchell.
Down. You gotta get lower.
Right down here. Let's see. Maybe I can sit
on bended knee in front of the king.
There we go. On bended knee. I'll shoehorn myself in here. Hey, I'm Keith. How are you guys? I'm Shipwright Skills on Instagram and shipwrightskills.com. I'm gonna make some axes today.
Yeah.
Right?
So words cannot explain how excited I am because we're going to make an axe today, and that's what I'm going to be using on my channel in the future. So, okay. All right, so tell me, how did you get into blacksmithing?
I wound up meeting a smith that's about 20 minutes from my house, Kevin Mulholland, Vermont Forgings. I always bought and sold a lot of tools. Always kind of been a tool collector, like wicked into the history of it, and started researching blacksmithing history. And I bought an anvil. I brought it down to him to show it to him, and he invited me down to his shop. And I walked into the shop that day, and he walked over to a steel rack, and he cut up, I think like a 10-foot length of 3/8 inch round into little sections. And he had a little giant power hammer, an anvil, and his coal forge. And he grabbed the piece of metal, stuck it in the forge, pulled it out, and he drew out a little taper and did a little forged leaf and cooled it, handed it to me, and he said, now do that. And he gave me a stack of 10 bars of steel to keep trying it until I got better. And that was it. I was completely hooked. So it is kind of weird because my first experience forging was with a power hammer. It wasn't with a hammer and anvil. So I kind of had to learn everything he was teaching me in the hammer, how to do it on the anvil, because he was the way his forging and fabrication company was set up was a lot of it. He had already set up ways to do it with his power hammer. So it was an interesting way to learn to forge, but I would just offer to help him for nothing. I said, come down. I went down there every weekend for 3 or 4 years. And I would help him with small orders. I'd forge 500 hooks for a company, or if he needed railings or whatever welded together, I would help with that. And then he'd have a lot of the times the farmers always came to him with tractor stuff, and I would be out welding stuff for the tractors. And so it was a great way to see a huge spectrum of what you do in a metal shop, and what you can do with blacksmithing and forging and stuff. So it was a great experience, and he was an amazing guy just to learn under.
And so how did you end up with this shop here?
So we moved into it was 9 years ago. I just about bought this house then, and the structure was half built. The guy never finished it, and so I had my anvil, and at the time we were storing the kids' bikes and stuff in here, and I was going there every weekend and forging, and then during the week, I just started accumulating tools. And it was a debate for a while because the blacksmith shop's really expensive. I mean, all the anvils, the forge, all the tooling's wicked expensive. There's a huge investment here.
This looks like a real high-tech.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's very high-tech.
No, but the bigger stuff is, it's a wrench I got at a garage sale for 50 cents. I welded on a bar for twisting.
Nice. Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Yeah, but you can find a lot of stuff flea market shopping, and that's kind of what I did before I started making my own tools. But it is definitely a debate on whether if anybody is interested in blacksmithing. When I started, I had access to his shop, so I had a few years or a good couple years before I really said to myself, I really want to have my own thing. So I just started buying equipment and moving it in. And
like we talked before, it's like camping equipment. You buy a little bit each year, and then after 5 or 6 years, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
so,
you get tons of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you started. You learned from someone else. You have a blacksmith shop now. You started with some initial things that you've been selling, decorative, artistic stuff. So what's next for you? What's the 2 to 3 year plan?
I want to basically focus on axes for the next couple of years, but it's tough because I have a lot of wholesale companies that I wholesale to stores kind of all around the country, and it's nice to have those accounts because it's they trickle in,
Right, you're always busy.
I kind of know what that I'm gonna have work, which is nice.
Okay.
So that's good. I mean, in terms of I'm not an Etsy guy. I tried doing Etsy, and I found it really frustrating.
Why?
Because they take quite a big cut, and, and you're operating under their timeline to a point.
Got it.
I think with the wholesale stuff, like I get the order for X amount of stuff in. I know my time period, and they know me and my time period and when I can get it out. So
Okay.
I like that relationship better.
So what are the different things you make in bulk? You talked about the bottle openers.
Yeah,
What else?
bottle openers and like little forged hooks.
Okay.
A lot of stuff like I don't post on my Instagram. It's like, you know, railroad spike openers. Just kind of the little trinket type stuff.
Okay.
You know, is big sellers. It's
Okay.
not necessarily the big stuff. It's I do like some Damascus, which I'm not a knife guy or blade guy, but I do make Damascus, and I do make once a year like a bunch of Damascus bottle openers, and those are definitely a big ticket item.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. So, yeah, I mean, with forging, I just love the process so much of it that I really can never get enough. So, as much as I like the welding and fabricating, I don't like grinding. I really like to stay at the forge. So, if I can have an item like a bottle opener or like a forged hook or like the coat racks and stuff where you can rivet stuff together, you know, and even like axes, I love the idea of, just because it's like you're just staying at the forge, at the anvil with a hammer, and to get away from like the fabrication stuff as much as possible. It's tough as like a blacksmith, because when you go to market that, to sell a forged item is quite a bit more of a labor.
Sure.
Then like you can fabricate something, especially like a coat rack or something. You see stuff pawned off as, you know, if you go to the big box stores as like as a forged piece, and it's not. They're just cold bending stuff and welding it together. So, so I'm trying to stay just in the forge, just because that's what I like to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's do two things now. Let's take a tour of the shop, and
Okay.
then let's tour of your favorite metal junkyard.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Good. All right.
Max deal. This is the shop. It's a small building. I think it's 33 feet long. It's like 12 deep ish. Almost not quite on the inside. It's almost like a single car garage. Yeah, this is it. This is my 1946 little giant power hammer. So this is my coal forge. If you see, I just fabricated this. Like, it's just a table with a hood that goes out. In a perfect world, you have a pipe that goes straight up, but it's got an elbow, so it smokes a little bit. Cast iron fire pot is made by the New England Blacksmiths.org, and the vice president of the company, Bob Bernard, if you email him, you can buy the cast iron pots, and they're like $200. So the rest of the forge you can fabricate yourself, but the cast iron pot is great because it's not going to burn out.
Got it.
So if you fabricate that, you're going to burn out something out of steel. So those are wicked. Yeah, if you go online to Blacksmith Depot or the other big companies, to buy a whole coal forge is really expensive, but you can fabricate one pretty easily.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is like the main area for coal forging. I've got a couple welders, like a TIG stick and a MIG welder set up, so like for fabrication stuff. And then this side is like primarily my gas forge, which is I use a lot of the time, maybe more than the coal. I like the coal better. I'm not hooked on it, but it's big mandrel. And this is my
Look at all those hammers.
yeah, there's quite a bit. Like some I made and some are just like yard sale finds.
That's all right.
Like I'm addicted to little ball and peens, and I use them. I use them with my press, but you can see how the press will squish them over time. It doesn't. That's the thing about the press, is it's so tough that it will destroy your tooling.
Yeah.
As well as what you're forging. So little bandsaw and some grinders, and I've got my torch set, just acetylene and oxygen.
Okay. Who's Freddie?
I think it's Freddie Freihopper. I got that out of Max Steel's yard. Somebody had scrapped it, but I think that's the old New England like Freddie Freihopper sign. That's my best guess.
Awesome.
So I'm not really a sign guy, but like some of the stuff I've just found at Max Steel, hunting around, so I've dragged it home.
So tell me a little bit about Max Steel.
Max Steel, Josh Mack, one of the guys that I grew up with. Kind of been friends with him, rode skateboards with him when I was a teenager. His father and his grandfather came into town, or his grandfather came into town, I think 1949. And he was just one of those guys that went around and collected metal and started selling it. About like literally a stone's throw from my house. The city of Rutland wound up asking them to move outside of town because when they put the new hospital in, the steel yard was too close to the new hospital. So they moved it outside and they wound up buying like, I don't know, 15, 20 acres of land. And those 3 generations have been there, and the company's gotten really big, and they've been so nice to me, and just been a great place to buy steel and just find stuff, find antiques. Everything, like just, little table things, and you name it, they have it. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
And so do you come here, this is where you get all your scrap?
I get scrap here. They used to take this, I think they moved here in like 1950. They used to take those cars, or they took them for the first few years they were in business. And they never got rid of most of them. So they've started lifting all of them up out of the dirt.
Oh,
Raising them up on stilts.
I see.
Which is cool, but it's like 20 acres, and if you go into those woods, it's full of cars. Like,
really?
Everywhere, yeah. Like super old cars. Some of the keys are still in the ignitions of some of them.
Huh. Wow.
So like the old IB. But that's like all railroad stuff. Those are all like the spikes,
Oh,
and
wow.
the plates to hold the track.
Yeah.
So.
Do those get recycled eventually, or?
Yeah, it does. But if I want to come in and get like spikes for like making bottle openers or whatever, I just come and
Unlimited supply.
Yeah, it's just I don't have to look anywhere. I just come and pick them up.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What is that right there?
That is an old shear for shearing steel, an old mechanical shear.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
something that Jimmy DeResta would take and restore maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all there.
Wow.
Yep. So it's amazing. Like, look at all the railroad track. There's a railroad anvil, like 300,000 of them.
Okay.
You gotta cut it up.
Hey everybody, we're back from the tour. Thanks, this place is awesome. Before we start making the axe, I think you have another passion you want to talk about before we end the podcast. So,
Yeah, I'm like super passionate and somewhat of definitely an anvil geek, is what I've been referred to by other people. But yeah, I'd really like to show you some of the anvils I have. I've owned quite a few, and I sell quite a bit. So the stuff I have in my shop is the stuff I've kind of kept for myself that I use, and I want to.
but what do you do that other people would say you're an anvil geek? Like what
I really
level
like-
of craziness do you do?
I really like the history on how they forged these anvils. I mean, there was only basically 4 major forges in the United States that forged anvils.
Wow.
The first ones were cast. Everything before that, before like the 1800s, was coming in on boats from England. Some Germany, but mostly English, like the colonial axes the colonial anvils. You find them definitely in New England. Still from the Revolutionary War and stuff. Yeah, so it's cool. And Richard Postman's book, I bought that book, I guess 9 years ago, even before I started forging, probably 10 years ago. And he is just a huge book of just all the information on different types of anvils that you would find in the United States and some European stuff. But it's Richard Postman's Anvils in America, if anybody looks it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you collect them, you resell them, you restore them, you just keep them.
Yeah, I try to do as little to them as possible. I mean, I think first and foremost they're antique. Most of these anvils are over 100 years old, and you know, I might do a slight welding repair, but I really try not to. I try to avoid it. Mm-hmm. I like to sand and dress the faces. I think that's super important. That, like, if it's a tool you're going to use, I have anvils that are like from the 1700s that I would never touch. But if it's a tool you're going to use, I think it needs to be dressed. You should dress the face just like you dress a hammer, you know, or an axe when you get it. Or I think it's important to have it usable. But that's like if there's a major problem with an anvil, it's probably nothing I'm going to buy.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
so anybody starting out.
Okay.
It's easy to find an anvil, but it's tough to find one in decent shape. We can start with this one, and I'll go to that one, and just kind of go around.
Okay. So you have an anvil addiction.
I do. I have an anvil addiction.
Okay, let's see them.
So this is a 355-pound Peter Wright anvil, and if you can see from the side, on this side, you probably can't see. There is it's stamped England somewhere in there. I can't see, it's too dark. After 1910, 1911, they made everything that was exported out of England had to be stamped England. So that's the way it's dated. So I know it was made after 1911 sometime. I think they went out of business, like, it was before the crash, but it was probably the 1920s.
Okay.
Sometime. So it was made in that period. There's also it's like a 3-piece forged anvil. This is a hay button anvil. This was made, I don't know the exact date, but it was made after 1908. And the whole top that was forged is all one body of metal that's all tool steel.
Okay.
Versus the old way, which was like wrought iron. This is a Trenton anvil. It's got they would forge like the base, then they would forge this part, the middle section, then they would jump weld on like a steel plate, which is the old traditional way of forging an anvil. And this is one I just got at an estate sale. I've got a little stake anvil that me and Mr. Shipwright Skills, Keith Mitchell, we put it in that log of wood. And when we did it, in order to set that base in, to do that,
I remember that video.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
So I forged this thing that matched the base of what this anvil stake is. And Keith and I heated this up in the coal forge, and we burned our way into that chunk of hemlock.
You're going to have to send me that
yeah,
video.
I'll send you the video.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Cool. All right.
So my big anvil, I bought it at auction. It's over 400 pounds. It's a hay button. It's after 1908. I think it might be 1916, but I'm not exactly sure. I was just dumb luck that I happened to show up at the right auction. But
great.
And this is a Swedish anvil. It was made in Sweden, Soderfors. It's 356 pounds. It wound up being traded into Center for Metal Arts by a farmer who wanted a smaller anvil that he could move around, and they traded him a couple anvils, and I traded them a bunch of small anvils that they could use for their teaching, because they didn't need another big anvil. So that's how I wound up with that. And I have another little Soderfors that's right there, and I think that one's stamped 1928. I think this one's stamped 1923.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are like these two Swedish anvils are cast anvils. It's all cast tool steel. And then right over there in the corner is an old Peter Wright. And you can see because of the wrought iron body and that steel plate that as they're overworked, you start to get a sway, which it's tough to see.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, I mean a lot of guys like that sway. It's great for straightening bar, especially in molding fabrication. You do get kind of a more densely packed area, so you do get kind of a little bit more return from your hammer. You get a little bit more rebound, but
got it.
You know, I mean, with these, this is like a cast steel. It's not going to ever sway. And like the hay buttons, that the cast tool steel doesn't, or the forged tool steel doesn't sway. So.
Okay, you are a geek, but
I'm a geek.
that's amazing.
That's it. Right. That's it.
Well, let's conclude the podcast because I really want to get to making that axe. But could you just tell us again your contact information for your Instagram, website, and podcast? And I'll put these in the description section as well.
Awesome. My Instagram is Jesse Savage Blacksmith, and my website's the same, jessesavageblacksmith.com. The podcast that I do with Rick Barter is blacksmithspubpodcast.com. It's easy to find on iTunes. It's really easy to find anywhere. We also have an Instagram, which is the same name, and that's listed in my Instagram too. And Rick Barter's Instagram, I think, is Barter. It might be Barter/Rick, but you can find it off the Blacksmith Pub podcast. But yeah, it's really cool, and I'm really passionate about that podcast and what we're doing. And I think just what's going on in this country in terms of forging right now, there's such a renaissance, and everybody just starting doing being more familiar with forging, which is going to help everybody sell more, just knowing what the stuff is. So
Yeah.
I think the podcast is helping. Doing the same thing you're doing. We interview different blacksmiths, and we hear their story, and people find out about different craftsmen. Yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody. We're going to wrap this up and start making an axe. All right.
Sweet.
Just
Just kill them all.
kill them all.
Perfect.